Okay, folks, welcome to another edition of My Life with Robert Burns. Douglas Mackenzie and Jim Thompson here to talk to another of our cronies from around the Burns world. How you doing, Jim?
Doing great, Douglas. It's finally started to give me sunshine today.
Good. We don't have the temperatures that they've got on the other side of the Atlantic, which we'll hear about in a minute or two.
No, we've not got temperatures already.
Tonight, folks, our guest is a former journalist, an animal activist, and a screenwriter. So cronies everywhere. Please welcome Janet Thompson Deaver. How are you doing, Janet?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
That's fine. I'm glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Janet, we always start with the same question with these podcasts, and that's, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Okay, well, I went to Winthrop College in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Also, University of South Carolina. That's not where I met Dr. Roy. I met him a couple years ago. His books intrigued me, and I adore him. And he was so enthralled with the screenplay, Robert Burns, that he has put him in his Caroliniana library collection. He was going to ask me questions about this, that, and the other, and he wanted to know, where did I get the idea that Robert Burns had cried on the letter to Elizabeth Riddle? And I said, because there's teardrops all over it. And he said, well, where'd you get that? I said, because it's in your book. He has the actual letter that Robert wrote to Elizabeth. And he said, oh, really? He was so excited. He said, well, can I just go ahead and put this in my collection at Carolina? I go, yes, sir. So I said, well, I gotta go now. I've got to call my assistant and call him over here quick so we can put it in the Carolina library, his collection of things. So if I had meant, yes, sir. I was just excited, I had my computer all booted up, and it was like,
I was just going to say,
one question. One question. And here I adored him.
Good. Well, before we get too much into talking about Burns, let's hear a little bit about you. So you went to at what age did you go to? Was it Winthrop College?
1970s, and I majored in communications journalism with the emphasis on writing.
Right.
And
okay.
I was at Carolina some, trying to get degrees for the ones I flunked at Winthrop. So, French mainly. But
did you go there straight from high school?
To Winthrop, yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Yep. And once you left school with your degrees, did you start in journalism right away?
I worked for the Star Reporter, and I worked at banks, but I enjoyed being at the Star Reporter as a reporter because I was able to go cover Highland Games one time, and that was when I don't know if they were talking about Robert Burns or not. I got into Robert Burns about 30 years ago, and began reading books about him, and Dr. James McKay, and I just was enthralled about Robert himself, the man.
So it was going to Highland Games that got you interested?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and as I said, I was a reporter, and for the Star Reporter in Columbia, and got to cover things and just do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and everything else.
Yeah.
So.
And I know, were you a reporter for a news channel as well?
Yes, sir. That was, it's called the Star Reporter.
Right.
In Columbia, and Mr. Montgomery, another Scot, he said, Janet, I want you to cover the Highland Games. And so it was in Columbia, and I got that. So it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Good. Well, before we move on to that, tell us a bit about your family.
My mom and daddy, the Deavers, are from, well, Mama was from Charles, South Carolina, and Daddy's from Greensboro, North Carolina, and they met. Mama was a Presbyterian, Daddy was Methodist, and then he became Presbyterian real quick because he wanted to date my mama. And I have my two older brothers, Phil and Bob, that are Billy's 10 years older, Bobby's 6 years older. He's in heaven now, but COVID got him with pneumonia. Not
Oh,
ever,
dear.
yeah. I'm the baby and the brat and the spoiled one, but we had good, wonderful family, three of us, and had the best, most wonderful parents in the world. Brought us up in the Presbyterian church.
Yeah.
We just had a lovely family life. Had a lot of animals around us.
Yeah.
Dogs. Yeah. I have cats all over the place right now. I work with friends of feral felines. What we do is we're trying to do spay neuter with them because there's just such a outbursts of cat population.
Yeah.
And these are the ones that are outdoors. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them sleeping all over right now. But the thing is that we need to be sure that the kittens aren't going to be everywhere. So I have 8 ferals that have been spay neutered, and I've worked with. Oh, my daddy said I should have been a veterinarian. So because I had so many animals, I was bringing them home all the time. Anyway, yeah, that's me. I had 2 horses and cats, dogs.
Yeah.
Anything I could get my hands on that was an animal.
So do you at some stage, or do you live in the country, or are you in a town?
I'm a city girl. Raised. I couldn't live on a farm. No, what they have to do to animals. Somebody gave me a rooster one Easter, and I took my aunts to stay there. And then the next time we went to visit her, we had chicken dinner. So I was looking all over the place for my rooster, and everybody was quiet because we were about to sit down to eat. And I was like, "Where's my rooster, Aunt Melita?" And nobody wanted to talk. All of a sudden, I just pushed my plate back. I was like, oh my God, I never took another animal in my life. So I asked, please don't give me an animal for Easter. So anyway, well, we know where that one went.
Yeah.
So it was just.
So where did you keep the horses if you live in town?
30 miles from my home.
All right.
In Columbia, South Carolina, where I'm from. Yeah, I had one that unfortunately died to kidney colic. Then I had another one that I brought to Charlotte, North Carolina with me, Sheikah, who was part Arabian. And I had polio. Who was it? He's Scottish. He's an author that wrote Ivanhoe.
Yeah. Walter Scott.
Yeah. He's the one that told Robert Burns about the Burnbury print. He was like 9 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
It's a screenplay. But Robert Burns got a tear in his eye because he got so upset about this particular print. But that's why I'm excited about seeing Robert Burns' screenplay get to film, because it's called a romantic fantasy.
Yeah.
And we get to see Tim O'Shanter. We should get Jim to read the screenplay because it's like magical.
Yeah.
How'd you like it? How'd you like?
I really enjoyed it, but I'm gonna leave the screenplay until we finish talking about you.
Okay, super.
Now, what's the bit we missed? What about, did I notice that you had some grandchildren?
I have two granddaughters. One is Ashley Nicole and Autumn Grace. She was just born this past year.
Oh, lovely names.
Yeah, my daughter is in Virginia right now getting help with them. Danielle has not been well recently, and she had to go to the other mom to get some help. She
Yeah.
said that Autumn is being the sweetheart she is, and Ashlyn's being the brat monster she is. So
I
I
hope they don't see this podcast after you saying these things about them.
yeah. Well, I myself have won an award for a best thriller for a screenplay I wrote called Kimura. And so it's about a woman who's been done in by bad doctors. So they say, write what you've done, write what you know.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm currently reading a book called Robert Burns, The Man and His Work by Han Hecht. Y'all know that? Know that name? Okay.
Yeah.
Another friend, Robert, David Westwood suggested that one to read it. So I'm working on that because I want to write Road to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
For once we get Robert Burns filmed and all of that. So and I love it.
You've referred to that a few times. So let me explain to our audience the background to this. A few episodes ago, we mentioned the fact that nobody seems to have managed to put together the project that allows us to have a Hollywood blockbuster about the life of Robert Burns. And I mentioned this, and somebody let me know that, Janet, you had written a screenplay, so we were keen to talk to you. It's interesting when you look into the fact that there haven't been any major films about Burns. You ask the internet what it can tell you. You get told that there was a film in 1936, and there was another one in 1947, and so on. And there was also one a few years ago, a very low budget thing called Red Rose. But there's never been anything, although it was speculated at one stage that Gerard Butler was doing a project, but it doesn't seem to have come to anything. So, against that background, folks, Janet has written a screenplay called Robert Burns, so we'll ask her to tell us about it, and I'll get Jim to have that conversation with you, Janet.
I tell you what, Gerard Butler has a part in Robert Burns, but he won't be Robert Burns. I want him to be Robert the Bruce. So he can do a voiceover and go through the stages of Scott's Hay. Yeah. And then at the end, Sir Sean Connery, actually, I had written the ending for the epilogue. And now I'd like for Jared to do the ending. He snuck one on the late Alex Salmon, because he gave him something saying there will be a Burns, and I'm going, you snook, you shouldn't do that. But I do have one for him to be in, but he's not going to be Robert. So we have Newtown, I pray, will be in as Robert Burns and Jean Armour and Clorinda. Bright new actors. But the ones that I'd like to see, I did write The Elder Highlander for a Scottish actor, James Cosmo. Cosmo?
Yep,
Cosmo, okay, thank you. Anyway, it's specifically written for him, because there's two phases of a dream sequence where Burns gets knocked back into, there's 5 stages of sleep, and he goes to Gillies Hill, and he meets the Elder Highlander where we are at our utmost high. And, the James Cosmo would be in that, and then he would be, Burns goes into the next phase of stage, that'd be Gillies Hill where we're winning, and he's at Culloden. we're not doing so hot. So yeah, Robert Burns is going through all that, and then he comes out of sleep, and he is like, he and his traveling companion are talking. I think his name was William Nichols, and he's humming "Hey Judy Taggy" to it. So that theme song is running all throughout the movie because, to me, Scottish independence should be utmost in the mind of Scotland now. You know, my country got out of England in 1776.
Yeah.
But to me, boy, I wish I was there to get there. So yeah, I'm fighting my way to home. My heart is in Scotland. My heart is not here.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is for Scottish independence. So if you see it all the way through the movie, you'll see that I've got it written. It'll come back, everyone, and then you'll see Jean and Robert and their love affair. Of course, if I can get to Red Road to Edinburgh writing that, then I get to go and I use Mr. Heck's book to get the first one done, which is beginning on January 25th of 1759. So, but I had such a good time breaking down a lot of what Robert wrote. Tam O'Shanter is one of them, and bringing the magical realism to it, which is you break it down into screen. He was on his horse coming back from seeing, what was the man's name that did all the artwork? He wanted to have he wanted Robert to write a piece to go with his, now I'm getting caught.
Francis Gross.
Yes, sir, that's the man. He wanted Robert to write a piece which ended up being Tam O'Shanter. My grandmama's picture just showed up. Grandmama Tompy. So that's something, an angel in heaven looking at us. But anyway, the whole thing is that everything is moved out to being that something I pray that the Scotland would love to see on screen. Now, y'all, for instance, read it, love it, and get it there. Everything's got to be in Scotland, by Scotland, and for Scotland. And then with Robert Burns for the entire world.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Reg Tate, said, Robert will be known. And I'm going, no. Get him filmed, and then he will be. So that's the way we are.
So, how did let's go back to you going to Highland Games and getting an interest in Scotland and its heritage. How did that then translate into your interest in Burns?
Well, my part of my heritage is the Thompsons, and so I've got that in my bloodline. However, Robert Burns, I had a book about 30 years ago that I came across, Mr. Douglas, that had written about Robert Burns and his love life, which I started reading it, and then I started reading the next one, and there's Dr. James McKay, who had this huge book that was fascinating because he got to go everywhere to research, and I love researching. And then Dr. Roy, but everything. So I don't know. Am I boring you?
No, not at all. I'm just fascinated by how you get from the point of discovering a book on Burns and then looking at how could I make a screenplay from that, because I don't know, I've never considered being able to write a screenplay, because it's a special talent, isn't it?
Well, you get his life up there, and Robert was only alive with us for 37 years. Well, boy, did he ever have a life to write about. And Maria Riddle said he was a gem in the rough, and he just was, he wasn't with us long enough. Think about what he could have done with a laptop.
Yeah.
If, he pen, quill to paper with him, but and sitting on the side of the bank of the Nip, getting
Yeah.
there, writing Tam O'Shanter.
Yeah.
But in his mind, he was going through every motion that was bringing forth Tam O'Shanter that y'all know about. And how many ways did he write it? I was like, oh, well, let's watch how he wrote it. So in his mind, he wrote this, that, and then we ended up with, well done, Cuddy Sharp, Cuddy Sharp. So I was just fascinated with the way Robert wrote everything. He just had in mind, he wrote, what, 500 and something different poems, prose, and he wrote, was one that I was reading about that I can't wait to write about was To a Mouse. He had upheavaled a mouse's home and was so upset about it. And he and Gilbert were supposed to be getting stuff to a lime pit or something like that. And Robert's mind was not on what they were doing. So he was helping to dump something off to the lime pit. He's missing every time. So Gilbert was just, stop what you are doing. What are you thinking about? And Robert's like, the mouse. So he was like, well, just go home and write instead of trying to help me. So pretty much from that. So yeah, Robert he had so much he wanted to write about. So is Mr. Thompson want to ask a question? No, he's looking.
Janet,
Yes, sir.
is that the book? Is that Jim Mackay's book you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
The
On the
biography.
nose.
Yeah. Did you manage to wind your way through this whole thing?
Yes, sir. Every bit of it. Every page.
It's Jim Mackay was, I mean, probably great at what he did in terms of producing things, but I just find him that he edits things to suit his own purpose a lot of the time as well. But as far as biographies go, I would suggest to anyone that that's the best biography of Burns in terms of the reality of Burns and not this romantic idea of Burns that we often get in biography.
I agree 100%.
It's surprising to find somebody who's wound their way through it all, though, I've got to say.
I love that book. I have never been to Scotland.
Yeah.
I saw Scotland through Dr. McKay's eyes to get there. Especially, I want to come to Scotland and visit Ellis Land, Priors Carse, and Dumfries. But Dr. McKay, yes.
Ellis Land is undergoing quite a change. Well, has been for the last few years, and Friars Carse is right next door, and it's now a hotel. You can stay there.
Yes, sir.
And Dumfries is, well, we've got a friend who was the very first person to do My Life with Robert Burns, and he does tours of Dumfries. So if you ever come over, we'll speak to Bobby Jess, and you'll have the best of guides around Dumfries, because without hesitation of a doubt, he is the best. So it's, just to go back onto your
no, I'm glad that you brought that book up, because Dr. McKay's book is the one I went by to write everything, and he got everything right except one. He has that he has that Robert Burns passed away at 36. I was like, Dr. McKay, but yeah, I've learned one thing: never leave a place for the author to sign, because Dr. McKay passed away. I had a place for him to sign. The Douglas that wrote about Dr. Robert Burns' romances, I left a place for him to sign. He passed away. I was like, forget it. I'm not going to ask anyone else to sign their autograph. I'm like, oh no. But anyway, but I'm so glad you brought that book out because my daughter and my husband were getting my room all redone so I could get my wheelchair in here. And now my books on Robert Burns are missing in action, and that is the main one that I wanted to bring out was Dr. McKay. So it's just great. Thank you so much for bringing him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree 100 billion%. That is the one to read.
It's really handy in terms of if you Jim Mackay stuff. I mean, he's done. There's a whole. I'll just get it for you. He's done. I mean, this is just there's a 3-book selection which I would. It's easy to find. It's easy to get if you're really interested. And he's done the complete works of Burns, which is all his poetry and songs.
Mm-hmm.
He's done the complete letters of Burns, which are not like the Ferguson letters. It's a different way of denomination. And then there's an A to Z of Burns.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The A to Z. So if you find a word,
oh yeah,
I would.
Yes, I will look for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean it's very easy to find, and it's certainly very helpful if you're going to do research of any kind.
Oh yes, sir. Well, that's what I want. I want anything I can get my hands on for my personal use. Okay, well, Mr. McKenzie.
Well, you don't need to call me Mr. McKenzie. Douglas is fine. So
okay, Douglas. Well, I'm a Southerner. I was born and bred. I was taught my mama and daddy.
Yeah, we're a lot more relaxed in Scotland.
Well, my people came from Scotland, but my mom and daddy came from the South.
All right. So can I go back to the process while Jim's thinking about his next question? If you wrote, if you read Jim Mackay's book, did you read it before you started writing the screenplay, or did you? And then once you'd done that, how did you decide which bits of Burns' life that you would include?
That's exactly what happened. I read the entire thing, and then I went back and said, okay, I cannot do the beginning of it yet. So what we did was I picked it up where he was in Edinburgh. That's the first part. I took one of what Robert Burns wrote about was the Grim Reaper, was the Grim Avenger. He only wrote one time about the Grim Avenger. And then I took, of course, got Koila in there from the Vision. And then they were kind of like vying for Robert's life in the screenplay between them. Koila is the good person. The Grim Avenger is the person that knows that he doesn't have a bit of time left on Earth, even in the beginning. So so I took it from the middle part when Robert Burns is filmed, and I can go back and have Road to Edinburgh written, and we can film that. It's a prequel. Okay.
So you're thinking well ahead. So the technique you've used that I have seen, it's the first screenplay I've read all the way through, so it was new to me. But the technique that you've used is almost to have individual scenarios, and also on occasion have sort of daydream scenarios and flashback scenarios. And I found it quite interesting. And had you decided that that's the way you would do it before you started writing?
Yes, sir. Well, that's it. With flashbacks, you have to give a pinpoint for the audience to see what he's talking about. With a lot of it, the basic watching what Robert's going through. I couldn't go back to Tarbolton, Ayrshire, Alloway, but we have it where Gilbert and them, they're young men at this point, dancing, and Gilbert and Robert are at a dance with a fiddler. And what I'd like to have is Jim McLean, who is a known Scottish fiddler, come and be in the movie. Eddie Reader said she'd be in. A
Yeah.
lot of the known celebrities, Kirsten Eastdale.
Yeah.
I love her voice. A lot of these singers that are over there would, let them sing their hearts out. So I've got a lot of Burns music that I listen to on the way to writing. But and of course, think about how learned that Robert was. He knew the Bible, he knew Greek, he knew Hamlet. Well, he knew Shakespeare. He and Glenn Riddle had a club that not club, it was kind of a library that they had for locals to read. So, and he get excited about, well, let's get this one for the gang to read. And Glenn was like, hey, let's get together. Let's order this one, this one, this one. And Robert's like, no, we need to order and get him back on track, which is, I'm a lot like Robert Burns. I get me on track. So, yeah, I just loved writing about him. But you have to get yourself concentrated. And Dr. McKay was concentrated. And then Dr. Ross Roy was another person who, and then, see, I didn't know Dr. Roy I grew up around the corner from him. And if I'd known him in high school or college, I probably would have gone to Carolina, which would make my daddy very happy because he wanted me to stay at home to go to school. No, I wanted to go to Winthrop. So anyway, but I just Robert Burns is something y'all be proud. I know you're proud of him, but a lot of Scotland is not still. That's a part. I was upset because school children are not that much proud of what Robert Burns did. In fact, one child I talked to, she said, "Oh, but we have to learn his works. We have to learn Red, Red Rose." I'm saying, well, be proud of the fact that you can. And she said, well, it's so boring. I was like, no, don't be bored with this man. This man was created to change the world. And the way I see it was with Scots, well, hey, anything patriotic, because if he had gotten caught with a lot of things, he'd be an Australian.
Yeah.
You look at it. So in this day and age, he can be. But in that day and age,
We're very hopeful, though, that a lot of young people are enjoying Burns again, and the area we live in, a lot of the schools, especially the primary schools, the young schools, are involved in Burns and in Burns competitions and such like. In fact, our local school in New Cumnock, we both in New Cumnock Burns Club, our local school recently won a competition and was awarded the best Scots language school in Scotland. So so the language is coming back and the poetry is coming back.
Well, the way I look at it, I'm praying so hard that let's get Robert Burns filmed, and young people will love Robert Burns.
Yeah.
They will go see a movie.
So I still find it amazing that you went from a Highland Games, then read a book, and eventually had a screenplay. Had you done some training in the writing of screenplays before that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I have gone to Maui, Hawaii, to learn how to write screenplays. Yes, sir. Oh, I've been trained to write. At Winthrop, I was majored in writing, and then I went to Maui to get more training about screenwriting. My people in Maui, one teacher that wrote Mrs. Doubtfire, I was in with a bunch of other people, and I kept asking the questions. And she finally said, Janet, will you just chill? And one lady raised her hand and she said, let her talk. We like listening to her voice. I apologize. You know, I said, oh, I'm sorry. But they like the Southern in me. So, which, hey, that's I am. So anyway, but no, yeah, I've been trained to write screenplay and which I love, but I've got several others to go. However, they said, you know, Robert Burns is the one that I concentrated on mainly, and then went back to one that I've won an award, which is Chimera. I won Best Thriller in Script Summit. Let's see. Yeah, I have this baby here.
All right.
Yeah,
Well
which I'm
done.
afraid to. Yep, that's my first one. I prayed that we're going to see Robert Burns win. Oh,
Mhm.
an Academy Award, maybe.
That would be good. That would be good.
I really do. I think because you finish with you, I want to win that and have the entire audience sing "Auld Lang Syne."
Janet, just to go back on this screenplay, most movies that come out have got a theme. You know, like, you know, is this a love story or is it the life of Burns or a historical story?
Patriotic,
Patriotic.
yes, sir.
So that's the theme.
Love story.
Patriotism.
I have well, it's called a romantic fantasy, but my theme is patriotic for y'all,
Yeah.
which is Scots Hay, hey Tootie Tatey. If I'm saying anything wrong, but the whole thing is my heart feels very strong that Robert would want to say something that he couldn't say in his time.
Yeah.
Which was something that he would be shipped to Australia if he had even mentioned the fact that he liked my General Washington Lee, the Buff and Blue, but he couldn't say a lot of things. Thomas Paine, the rights of man, the rights of women. He was very, very passionate about Scotland being free. And Scotland lost the freedom with Queen Anne not having children. So the heir came to, didn't he write something about the tariffs? Oh, no, I'm getting caught again. He was bordering on getting shipped out somewhere.
Yeah.
If you, yeah, but the whole thing is that in my heart, let's mesh with the romance, Jean Armour, Clorinda. There's one scene in it that I dearly love, which is he had gotten letters from Jean. He'd gotten a letter from Clorinda. And he's got a migraine headache, and he's in the stable with Jean asking him to marry her. And the two women are resounding in his head, going, "If you only knew the pain you've cost me." You've got dual dialogue, two women in his brain, and he's like, and it's the one where he supposedly threw crap on her, and she runs around the hay to get away from him because he's just miserable. And he ended up marrying her that night and making love and lots of babies. But the whole thing is, I tried to do my best. Had some disagreement with what hay was later, but the whole thing is, let's make it as real as possible. A director that knows his stuff with Robert Burns. That's where Jared Butler could come in again. But Jared, do it better. Don't try to sneak something in you. So I'm sneaking something in on him. How's that sound? So anyway, yeah, I Jared.
Having read so much about Burns, I mean, you've obviously not just read the James Mackay biography. So you've read so much about Burns. Do you have any favourite characters in Burns' life?
Favorite. Oh gosh. Who's the man that traveled the on the tours? He went with now you've gone, which I'm jealous.
With Willie Nickel.
Willie Nickel. Yeah, he got in trouble with it. Fun. But no, Neil Gow
Yeah.
is another fiddler. He also but border tours. Didn't you say you'd gone on the border tour?
We've with the Burns Club, we think we've been everywhere that Robert Burns went. So we've kind of followed the tours over the years.
Well, just think about how he felt. He didn't want to go out of Scotland. So the man that he traveled with him,
Yeah.
they went across a bridge and he jumped down, threw his hat out, did my Scotia deer, and they went back and said, okay, are you happy now? I've gone out of Scotland. Let's go home. Let's go home. But he, so he wanted to go. Yes, sir. He just wanted to go, he traveled. Well, in the scene that I have him with Willie Nichols, no, Willie Smelly and John Richmond, they're talking about this, that, and the other. And he also gets to meet James Johnson
Yeah.
in the tavern and talks about, oh, he's going to have a travels. And they say, where are you going? Like, are you going to France? Are you going? No, I'm going to go travel in my country. Because to people like Robert Burns and them, he's only been a couple miles from home.
Yeah.
So to him, he's going to get everywhere. And see, y'all have gotten the chance to go on all these travels. And I'm going, I want to come across the pond just to be in Scotland. So I'll get there.
Well, you mentioned that he'd gone across the river into England and
Yes,
and then came back again, but he actually spent quite a bit of time in England. And one of our colleagues, Chris Rowley, wrote a book about Burns in England. So I'll see if I can find a link for you to be able to get it. I think you find it quite interesting.
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
I asked you about characters. I'm sure if Jim jumped in just now, we'd be asking you about whether there's any poems that you like better than others.
Oh, well. Westland Winds. Anything that has romance in it, but that isn't hitting on something. Let's see, the one about Corinda. Oh, is that the one about the red rose?
Or A Fond Kiss.
A Fine Kiss. Yes, sir. That's the one. And anything that's patriot. Gospel Hey to me is so. He wanted to write a lot about stuff. However, knew that if he did, he'd get a lot of trouble. So he had to watch what he wrote.
Yeah.
I'm sure he wrote. Yes, sir.
How did you find? I mean, you've obviously read not only the biography, but you must have read some of the poems because you've referred to them quite a lot in the screenplay. How do you cope with the Scots language?
I had a good time with it because Robert Ferguson, he write in Scots.
Yeah.
Robert Ferguson had a shorter life than Robert Burns, and we touched on it because Robert Ferguson liked to play like he's a doctor. Sometimes when he go on a walk and tried to help a child once. Some of the imagination came out of that one. But Robert Burns was the brother in the bard, brother in misery, brother in the bard. And so Ferguson, Ramsey, I'm trying to think. Anyway, the whole thing is that Scots was easier for me because of Robert Burns.
Yeah.
He was translating, but keeping the same thing too. He was be thankful for him,
Yeah.
which I know you are. But anyway, so.
So getting back to where we started when you mentioned Ross Roy and the teardrops on the parchment. Tell us that story again, because I kind of cut you off earlier on.
Oh, I love that story because Dr. Roy was like, I had already researched it in his book, and he had a picture of it. So I sat there at the investigative reporter that I am. I was looking at it, concentrating, and the tear stains were on the letter that Elizabeth Riddle had received from Robert Burns the night after the rape of the Sabines, and
Yeah.
everyone wants to know what happened. So, and she threw him out of the house, but he had cried on it while he's writing it. So then Dr. Roy, as I said, I had my computer booted up and ready to go, and he said, "One question." I said, "One question?" Okay, go for it. And that's when he said, "Well, where did you get the idea that he had cried?" And he had not mentioned anyone crying. Elizabeth Riddle had not cried by any means. And I said, because the only person who would have cried was Robert Burns wanting her forgiveness. And he was like, "You're right. I didn't put that in the book, did I?" I said, "No, sir, you didn't." So he said, "All right." And he just said, "Okay, I'm excited. Can I put this in my collection at Carolina?" And oh, yes, sir. So he said, "Well, let's wrap this phone call up because I gotta call my assistant." So I was like, "Wow, I am so impressed with myself." I thank God. But yeah, I mean, really, Dr. Ross Roy wasn't something of mine, but that's God's too. So anyway, so yeah, it was fascinating because I know what he's doing. He's looking in his own book, saying, "How did she get that?" Which was his book. It was fantastic. See, you have to be an investigative reporter mind
Yeah.
and look at it and say, okay, so that's why I put it in the screenplay. Because Robert came home to an unhappy Gene. He was drunk, but that was not nice because his guys that he was drinking with, port to port, which I made a scene out of it, they're getting him drunk on purpose.
Yeah.
And then he hit on Maria Riddle, which was wrong. So the whole thing is that he had to write a letter the morning after, and Jean wasn't too happy with him because he'd come home kind of snuffered. So yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
but at least he had a nice pasture to walk across. But I think he was on Ginny Geddes or maybe Pegasus, who probably knew the way home. So he loved his horses.
Yeah.
So he had beautiful Pegasus, white stallion, and he had Ginny Geddes that he did probably the gauging his country rides on. So anyway, it was fun.
You'd mentioned in our earlier communication about his love of animals, and you'd mentioned that he had, I can't remember the exact phrase, but the cinch on Jenny, and she had filled her lungs with air, and I was asking my daughter about that, and she was
Yes,
saying
sir.
that it's that sometimes horses, when you're putting the saddle on, they fill their lungs with air, and it makes them bigger, which means the saddle's not as tight. And you have,
Yeah. Oh, your horse will throw you. Your horse
yeah,
will see your saddle go whoop upside down.
yeah,
So I have Robert really actually he has to go shoom, and he had to do that. Well, in my mind, because my horses used to do it. You have to pull it tight in order for the horse not to, if they suck wind, as we say, then
yeah,
you're going to be in trouble because you get in the saddle's just going to flop off. So yeah, I've had 2 horses in my life that were my legs. That's the reason why I was saying. So Walter Scott, that's the man. He had polio.
Yeah.
And Sir Walter Scott, I don't know, he was his horses were his legs as much as my horses were. So yeah. So yeah. Mr. Thompson,
Jim, we've probably only got about 10 minutes left. Have we got anything else that you want to ask Janet?
No, just to me, I still haven't grasped it. I mean, I can understand the process of all this, but I've still no grasp, because there's so many heroes. Why Robert Burns?
excuse me, that cat wanted to be in here. Now she's gone.
You know,
Yes, sir.
you know, you're writing a screenplay based on someone's life, and it's a Scot. Why Robert Burns?
Because he epitomizes everything to me Scotland stands for. All the when Barack Obama won, President Lincoln loved Robert Burns. He kept a book of his prose in his front pocket, because during the war between the states, Robert Burns' words meant so much to him about rights of man and slavery, all of that. So President Lincoln, my country is based on freedom. And that's the reason why I chose Robert Burns, because you start, people want to make him to be a womanizer. Okay, he loved women. But the whole thing is that Robert was for people's freedoms too. You get to the end, the epilogue about walk on, drummer, with the beat, keep it going. This is Robert Burns. He wrote for rights of women. He wrote for rights of man. He wrote for our time. So as I was reading about him and reading what he did write, it's just so sad that he passed away of a cardiac problem when he's 37. And so, yes, Robert Burns is a perfect person to bring to the screen. King Robert the Bruce has already been brought to Netflix, Mary Queen of Scots. So why not bring Robert Burns to people too? And he would be the perfect person to put in screen. I adore him.
I agree with you entirely. But just before we finish, because we try to keep our podcast to about an hour, just before we finish, what is the process now? How do you get it to the next stage?
A lot of prayer. I have been trying to get to Jerry Butler and James Cosmo. Cosmo would be perfect if we could just contact them and say, yes, there is a screenplay. And Jared, yes, there is one viable with you in it, but not as Robert Burns. Jared wanted to hit on, I think, three lives, love life, but we don't need to concentrate on his love life as much as we do the rest of him.
Yeah.
Family, Jean Armour, of course, definitely, Clorinda, all that. I can't hit on Highland Mary at the moment, but get Robert Burns on screen, and then we go back to Road to Edinburgh, then we go back to Highland Mary.
Yeah.
The whole thing is,
yeah.
We can get it in front of Jerry Butler, then we can get it filmed.
Yeah. So do you have an agent or somebody that's trying to make contacts for you, or how do you go about it?
Not yet. Working on it. But So you are the first step, and I appreciate your having having me here. You don't know. I tell you what, I have plenty of friends in Scotland, worldwide. So just thank you for allowing me to be here with y'all.
No, I mean it's great to talk to you. It's what we're trying to do with this series of podcasts is to talk to people from all parts of the Burns world. It would be easy to just talk to people in our own area, but we're very keen to find out what people's interest is in Burns in every part of the world and every part of life. So it's been great to talk to you. And I just want to say, Janet, thank you very much for telling us about your life with Robert Burns. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be in here.